بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد. Lesson number 7. بارك الله فيكم. Quick review. أقسام الكلام كم قسم؟ 3. What are they? ما هي يا جبريل؟ ما هي؟ قل اسم وفعل وحرف جاء لمعنى. بارك الله فيكم. مثل لفعل يا حنيف. مثل لفعل. خلق. أحسنت يا سلطان. مثل لاسم. النساء اسم. طيب مثل لحرف جاء لمعنى يا عبيد. في. أحسنتم بارك الله فيكم. الألف واللام في أول الكلمة علامة على أن تلك الكلمة اسم ولا فعل ولا حرف. What do you think يا سلطان؟ الألف واللام دليل على أن الكلمة اسم. أحسنت. وكلمة قد قبل الكلمة دلك على أن الكلمة ماذا يا جبريل؟ فعل. قد خلق. طيب وكلمة سوف قبل الكلمة دلك على أن الكلمة ماذا؟ فعل. بارك الله فيكم. أحسنتم. And then what's the problem? Last lesson now we introduced the sign of a harf. What's the sign of a harf? According to Ibn Ajrumiyyah, what does he say a harf is known by? Who's got it? Ibrahim. What's a harf known by? It's not the qad and the sin and the sofa, and it's not the alif lam and the tanween and the khafd. What is the harf known by? وذا دليل الفعل. نعم. Look at it. Lesson 6 on page 14.
Hey, a brief interruption here. Are you noticing something? Are you seeing that we are able to use Arabic a little bit more in our dialogue? That's going to increase slowly throughout the course. May Allah Ta'ala bless you and give you success. Notice that once you're familiar with the discussion, look how much easier it is to hold a conversation or understand what's going on and contribute. Look how that's getting easier. Allahu Akbar. Did you notice something else too? That I said look at lesson 6 on page 14, and in our workbooks now, lesson 6 is on page 20. Lesson 6 was on page 14 in the beta testing workbooks. Barakallahu feek. Now lesson 6 is on page 20. Okay, so back to class.
وذا دليل الفعل. نعم. Look at it. Lesson 6 on page 14. والحرف ما لا يصلح معه دليل الاسم ولا دليل الفعل. So now the harf is what doesn't have a sign of an ism. It doesn't have a sign of a fi'l. And we studied how many signs for the ism? 4. And how many signs of a fi'l? 4. And are those comprehensive? No. And there's no sign of an ism or a fi'l except these 4 and those 4? No. Therefore, if they're not comprehensive, then how does this work? Except it's flawed in its application. And an example from last time we gave that showed here's a word that doesn't have any sign of an ism or a fi'l, and it's still not a harf. What was an example? Zainabu. All right, no alif lam. We know it's a noun. No alif lam, no khafd, no harf jar, harf khafd before it, no tanween, and of course no sign of a fi'l. So then by definition that should be a harf. But it's not, because this statement right here is flawed. And we replaced it with a statement that's very direct, that actually is a little easier. Hard to apply, but more accurate. What is it, Ubayd? ما ليس بفعل ولا اسم or ولا باسم. طيب. Whatever's not a verb or a noun. Whether it has a sign or not of being a noun or a verb. There are nouns that don't have one of those 4 signs, and there are verbs that don't have one of those 4 signs, and they are not harfs because they don't have those signs. Clear? طيب. Lesson 7, the definition of i'rab. The definition of i'rab and its 4 cases. Did you hear in class tonight my request to Abu Maryam? I said a'rib. A'rib. That means tell me what that word is in the sentence. What place does it take? Is it a subject, a predicate? Is it a fi'l, fa'il, maf'ulun bihi? Is it a mubtada, a khabar, ismu laysa, khabaru laysa? All these terms here, we'll be learning them to learn how to classify every word. In English, it's like sentence diagramming, if you are that old to know what sentence diagramming is. It's when you write an English sentence out and you put a line under it and you draw lines to separate each word into a different, here's your subject, here's your predicate, something comes down off of it, and something branches off of that. You make a diagram with sentences. So i'rab essentially is like in English language, if you need to parallel it with something, it's like sentence diagramming, breaking down every word to know what role does it play in the sentence. Babul i'rabi, the topic of i'rab is introduced here, and the definition is given. Al-i'rabu huwa taghyiru awakhiri al-kalimi. It is to change the last parts of the kalim. Kalim is the plural of kalima, the words. Changing the endings of words. I don't want to say suffixes, but let's just leave it like that. Changing the endings of words. It doesn't mean strictly the harakat right at the end. Because sometimes we're talking about muslimuna and muslimina. They both have a fatha on the noon. But there's a reason why sometimes we say muslimun and sometimes we say muslimin. The difference is at the end of the word. It's una and in, it's right at the end. But it's not the very end, is it? So here, we don't mean the very end, always the last harakah. We don't mean that. We mean at the end or right near the end. Yeah, that's what the meaning of awakhir al-kalima, at the ends of the words. لاختلاف العوامل الداخلة عليها لفظا أو تقديرا. Due to, the lam here is lam لأجل, because of, بسبب اختلاف العوامل, because of the differing of the things that cause the word to change and shift in case, from being marfu' to mansub to majroor to majzum, like that. So the meaning of اختلاف العوامل, the words or the position of the word that cause this word to change from al-muslimu to al-muslimat to al-muslimi. And you've already been introduced to a few basic ones. For example, do you know of some word that comes and changes a word, the ending of a word, from what we've already studied in Ibn Ajrumiyyah's Muqaddimah? Harfu khafd, right? So harfu khafd comes to a noun like al-masjidu, and you put fi in front of it, harfu khafd, and then that word al-masjidu is no longer marfu', and this word marfu' is coming up. Don't worry about it if you don't get it yet. And it changes it to makhfud. And I said back then, and I'm saying it again today, don't worry about the real meaning of makhfud just yet. But that's a case of words. And now the case changes from being marfu' to makhfud. It has a kasra. Essentially, the dhamma on the end of al-masjidu changes and becomes al-masjidi. The reason it changed was because of you putting that word fi in front of it. That's what we're talking about, i'rab here. I'rab, knowing why al-masjidu became al-masjidi. Why? That's the whole point. Lafdhan aw taqdiran, whether it is by way of the wording that is clearly there in the sentence or by way of something understood. For example, if I said, Abu Hurairah Rajulun salihun radiyallahu anhu. Abu Hurairah was a righteous man, may Allah be pleased with him. And I said, Abu Hurairah. I started the sentence with Abu. Now, if I want to call upon a man whose name is Abu Hurairah, what do I say? I say, Ya, and we'll learn about this in what's called Babun Nida or Al-Munada. I say, Ya, we change Abu to something. Change it to Abba. So you guys have a little head start on that. So we change it because of i'rab. So I say, Ya Aba Hurairah. Now I could take off the ya too, and I could just call him Aba Hurairah. That's called taqdeer. You didn't use the actual word that makes it Aba Hurairah, but it's understood. Aba Hurairah. Aba Hurairah. I'm calling you. Aba Hurairah. Aba Hurairah. I'm calling you. Where are you? Aba Hurairah. like that. If I said Abu Huraira, then the people around me would say, ماذا به? What about him? You're introducing a mubtada here because you said Abu Huraira. You're introducing an idea, a subject, now you need a predicate. What happened to him? Where is he? What are you trying to say about him? It's like Zaydun. When I say Zaydun, with tanween there, that means I'm about to tell you something about Zayd. I'm giving you information. Here it comes. I've given you my mubtada, Zaydun. Now I'm going to tell you where he is or what he did or something about what he looks like. I'm going to give you a khabar. I'm going to give you some information about Zayd. But if I said Zaydu, not Zaydun, all of a sudden we've got ism alam, a name being called upon. I'm calling Zayd. Zaydu. It's like I'm saying Aba Huraira. Zaydu. And I just didn't put the ya there. Ya Zaydu. Ya Zaydu. Ya Zaydu. So lafdhan, we have ya there. It should be Zaydu. We'll learn about why. You shouldn't know why right now if you are a pure beginner. We'll learn why this munada, all these examples I'm giving you, we'll learn why they change. The goal is not to understand why they change at this point right here in the beginning of the book. The point is to just sort of know that words change like this, from Zaydun to Zaydu, from Rajulu to Rajulan, Ya Rajulan, and Ya Rajulu, Ra'aytu Rajulan, Ja'a Rajulun, Marartu bi Rajulin. So Rajul changes from Marfu' to Mansub to Majrur or Makhfud. And there are reasons. Those reasons and the study of those reasons and the impact of those reasons on the word, that's called what? I'rab. I'rab. To know why something has a dhamma. And you've heard me ask, sometimes when people read something and they say al-Islam and they put a fatha on the meme, and I say a'rib. Why? Why'd you put a fatha on it? And I don't want to hear from people that there's a fatha in my book. I want to hear the grammar breakdown of why you think it's mansub, why you think it's in that case, why it's not al-Islamu or al-Islami, and why is it al-Islama in that specific sentence. And it's not because someone who produced the book put a fatha there. That doesn't mean anything. In terms of our study now of i'rab, we need to know why. That's why many times if you follow along in our classes, I oppose the things that are in the book a lot because perhaps the book is mistaken, or perhaps the reading that I'm reading is something I've reviewed from the audio of the sheikh, and there's two ways to say it. I'm saying it the way the sheikh actually said it, not the way it was transcribed. Things like that come up in the class a lot. That's all because of knowledge of i'rab. So you will hear this fi'lu amr directed to you, this order, this command. A'rib, make i'rab of that word. A'rib, and I'll mention a word. A'rib al-kalima, a'rib kadha, like that. You'll hear that a lot. You'll get used to it. It's something that you'll hear again and again, insha'Allah ta'ala. And those who've studied Ajrumiyyah with me, they know that. They'll hear i'rab, they'll hear a'rib. And then when you study morphology with me, you'll hear isrif. You'll hear make sarf of such and such word, or zin, give me the scale, or malwazn, and so on. Anyway, so you're going to hear about i'rab a lot. Now we're going to introduce to you the 4 cases because it's important. We'll name the 4 cases, and we will give 4 examples of words that are in that case. So the case has a name, and the word that's in that case has a name that's relative to it. أقسامه أربعة, Ibn Ajrumiyyah says, rahimahullah, and its categories, you could say, are 4. There are 4 categories of i'rab. Just before we get to 4 categories of i'rab, I want you to make a little tree that you could say al-kalam or al-kalima. The word is either mabniya or mu'raba. Mabniya means the end of the word doesn't change based on its position. It's sort of fixed. Like the word ilah. Ilah is always ilah, no matter what place, no matter what happens to it. You put a fa in front of it, fa ilallahi, it's still ilah.
Moosa.
Yeah, and Moosa is not mabni, just so you know. It's not mabni. Although I understand why you'd say that, because you can't see the alamatul i'rab on the word Moosa. But the word Moosa is mu'rab, but you just can't see the sign of its i'rab. Mabni, words that are mabni, and I said mabniya, kalima mabniya, they are examples of al-ahruf. All the harfs are mabniya. Fi'l madi is mabni. Past tense verbs. And fi'l amr, command verbs, orders. These are mabniya. That means you don't say fi'l amr is marfu' or majzoom or anything like that. You don't say fi here is marfu' or mansub. No, because that's a harf. The harf is always mabni. Fi'l madi, past tense verb, is always mabni. And the third one I gave you was fi'lu amr. Fi'lu amr. You can add on top of that if you want to add more. Other things like dhama'ir, the pronouns, whether they're muttasila or munfasila. The pronouns. Huwa, hiya, anta, anti. They're mabniya. And darabtuki, darabtukum, so on. If they're muttasila, if they're connected to verb, they're still mabniya. All right, and there are other words that we can add, other categories of words that are always mabniya. If you remember those, that'd be great. That what every fi'l madi, every past tense verb is mabni. That means it's not part of today's discussion. It's not mu'rab. Mabni is the opposite of mu'rab. There's no i'rab of something that's mabni. You can't make i'rab of it. When I say you can't make i'rab of it, you can't assign it a case. You can't say it's marfu' or mansub or majroor because it's mabni. Okay? So harfs, fi'l madi and fi'l amr, and add to that dhama'ir, pronouns. Now go to the mu'raba. Mu'raba are asma. Most of the asma. Most nouns. And fi'l mudari'. All present tense verbs. They are mu'raba. Yeah, asma and af'al mudari'ah. Present tense verbs. So we're going to have a heavy focus then on isms and fi'ls. Fi'l mudari' in terms of i'rab. Now, from mu'raba, the kalima is either mabniya or mu'raba, and you have some examples. Under mu'raba, it should branch out to four things. Kalima is either mabniya or mu'raba. Maybe you mentioned some examples along with it, but now, mu'raba is four types of being mu'raba. It has i'rab in one of four ways. That's what Ibn Ajrumiyyah mentions, وَأَقْسَامُهُ أَرْبَعَةٌ. Four types. You can put them right there. Raf, nasb, khafd, and jazm. Write them in there. Raf'un, nasbun, khafdun. Another name for khafdun, jarrun. Now, so khafd is also called jarr. And the last one is called jazmun. So the case is called rafa'. And the word that we're assigning this case to is marfu'. So let's give an example of rafa'. Ja'a Zaydun. Ja'a Zaydun. What's the word that's marfu' here? Zaydun is marfu'. Who can take a guess on the word ja'a? Is it marfu' or mansub or majroor? Ja'a. It's a fi'l madi. Ubayd says so. There's no case for it. We can't say it's marfu' or mansub or majroor or majzoom because it's a fi'l madi. Thank you. Allahumma barik. So then rafa' is the name of the case. The name of the word that goes with this case is marfu'. Ja'a Zaydun, Zayd is marfu'. The basic sign of the rafa' case is a dhamma. So circle what you have on Zayd. You have dhamma tani, two dhammas there. Just circle that as a basic sign of something being marfu'. It doesn't mean everything that's marfu' will have a dhamma or two dhammas. Just that's your initial sign. That's your original sign of something being marfu'. It's a dhamma. Now we go to nasb. The case is called nasb. And I'll give you a sentence. Ra'aytu Zaydan. Ra'aytu Zaydan. I saw. Who did I see? Zaydan. Yeah, put tanween on the dal. That means you have to put an alif after the dal. Zaydan. Add that extra alif and put the tanween on the dal. Don't put the tanween on the alif. Put the tanween on the dal. Ra'aytu Zaydan. So the word Zayd here is mansub. The word that's in the case of nasb is called mansub. And circle the two fathas. That's your base original sign of being mansub. It does not mean, again, that everything that's mansub will always have a fatha, but it's the base sign. There are many signs, and we're going to get into all the different signs of the nasb. So we've got two cases here. Now we've got khafd. Khafd, which is also called jar. All right. Marartu bi Zaydin. Marartu, that means I passed by. Marartu, mim ra ra ta. Marartu bi Zaydin. Put two kasras on that dal. Marartu bi Zaydin. Marartu bi Zaydin.
Without the alif.
No alif, yeah, just like ja'a Zaydun, no alif. And marartu bi Zaydin. Now, in this case, the same word, Zayd. It's the third time we're using the word Zayd. The first time we used it, Zayd was marfu'. The second time we used it, Zayd was mansub. The third time we used it, Zayd is makhfud or majroor. Barakallahu feek. And the name of the word that's in this case is makhfud. All throughout Ibn Ajurum's Muqaddimah, he uses the word makhfud. But if you look in other books of language, you will see majroor. They're synonymous for this case here. And then circle your two kasras there. Bi Zaydin. That's your base, original sign for being majroor. And then we have majzoom. Majzoom. The case is called jazm. Jazm. And the word that is in this case is called majzoom. And so we're going to say lam yajlis Zaydun. Yajlis with a sukoon on that scene. Lam yajlis Zaydun. Now, where's the majzoom word? Yajlis. It's a verb, right? And it's coming up. You'll know why I had to use a verb as the example of a majzoom word. You know why? Yeah, majzoom case is only for verbs. There is no such thing as an ism majzoom. Pay attention when I say there's no such thing as this, because if you notice, it comes up on my little quizzes. So I'll ask you for an example of a verb that's majzoom. You can pretty much guess that question will be coming up sooner or later. Give an example of a verb an ism that's majzoom. And you have to say, لا يوجد, or ممتنع, or مستحيل. There's no such thing. It's not found. لا يوجد في اللغة العربية. There's no ism that's majzoom in the Arabic language. طيب. So لم يجلس زيد. Circle that sukoon. So you have like a circle around a circle. لم يجلس زيد. Not يجلسوا or يجلسا or يجلسي, but يجلس sukoon. يجلس زيد. So that verb right there is majzoom. Majzoom. And that's all we want to introduce this evening. The text is, one more time, Babul I'rabi. The topic of I'rab. Yeah? Bab can mean chapter. Yeah, this book is so small for it to have chapters, but it's the chapter of I'rab, the new topic of I'rab. Al-I'rab huwa taghyiru awakhir al-kalima. I'rab is the changing of the ending of the words. لاختلاف العوامل الداخلة عليها لفظا أو تقديرا. Due to the actors that act upon it, of other words and context and placement, whether that is words being stated expressly or being understood from the passage. Right? If you look at our four examples of brief sentences about Zayd, we have Zaydun, Zaydan, and Zaydin. And we see the end of the word Zayd changed. Because one time, ja'a, it comes after a past tense verb. He's the one who does the coming. Ja'a Zayd, Zayd came. Then ra'aytu Zayd, and now Zayd's an object here. So it's Zaydan. Then marartu bi zaydin, it comes after a harfu khafdin. So these differences that lead up to the word zayd, they are the things that cause the word zayd to become zaydan or zaydin or zaydun. That's the whole point of i'rab. Knowing why. Knowing the connection of the context, the words, everything, the intended meaning of the passage. All of that connects you to why you say zaydun versus zaydan versus zaydin. وَأَقْسَامُهُ أَرْبَعٌ. And the four categories of i'rab are four: raf'un wa nasbun wa khafdun wa jazmun. The four cases that have been explained to you, and the words that go with those cases are marfu'un wa mansubun wa makhfudun or majroor, and majzumun. And examples have been given to you. Remember, that's after you divide all words into either mabni or mu'rab. And we're not talking about the mabni words. Mabni words are just mabni. Mu'rab words, now you have to say, if it's mu'rab, it has to be one of these four cases. That's the whole point. Once you find a word is mu'rab, now, okay, I need to know which case it's in, and I need to know why. That's what the grammarian, he focuses on. This is the focus of the study of an-nahu, Arabic grammar. All right, so lesson 7 is at this point complete. Any questions or concerns before we close?
Yeah, just one quick question.
تفضل يا إبراهيم.
The majzoom will be fil mudari. It should be fil mudari. It cannot be fil madi, as you said, because it's mabni. Is that correct?
Something that's majzoom is going to be a fi'l mudari. Yes. Yeah. If you've understood, that's a good deduction to say, okay, it can't be an ism because there's no such thing as an ism majzoom. Right. And you told us that the fi'ls are three. It's either fi'l madi, fi'l mudari' or fi'l amr, and you told us that fi'l madi and fi'l amr are mabni, so that means that the majzoom is always going to be a fi'l mudari'. Ahsant, good conclusion.
But is there like a sign to say that it's majzoom, like if we see it?
The sukoon is your basic sign. Remember I had you circle the sukoon?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so your sukoon is your basic sign of being majzoom.
So a person would be wrong if they try to make the i'rab of the sentence. For an example, they say dhahabat, and a person would say, okay, with the sign of it's majzoom because there's a sukoon on that top, but this is not the case.
Well, that's a fi'l madi.
That's fi'l madi.
Yeah, dhahabat is fi'l madi, so you can't say it's majzoom. So we're not looking for any word that has a sukoon at the end. That's not what we're looking for majzoom. We're just saying that the sign of a word being majzoom will be a sukoon. There are other reasons why a word can end with a sukoon. One of the most obvious ones is that it's mabni ala sukoon. The word ila, mabni ala sukoon. The word min, mabni ala sukoon. The word an, mabni ala sukoon. The word fi, mabni ala sukoon. So lots of words are mabni ala sukoon. They end with sukoon. They're mabni. مبني نعم. والله أعلم وصلى اللهم وسلم وبارك على نبينا